It's me, Raul Ramirez, with the Catch Wrestling Alliance, where we keep real wrestling alive. That's always been our goal, and that's why it's even on my T-shirt. For those of you guys who are watching the video of this live stream, you can also see us on Twitch, YouTube, and a podcast version wherever you get your podcasts or wherever you listen to your podcasts. We'll be there, right? Or at least we'll try to be there. Um, so welcome. The thing is, or the topic for this week is pretty interesting because, like, I think sometimes, not sometimes, but the rivalries between martial arts have always been a thing, and people are always trying to find out, or at least try to claim superiority over other martial arts and all that, like with whatever style it is that they like, right? And so. I think that's really never going to end. But I kind of want to talk about that, kind of like this logic thing, where if someone of who practices one particular style, if they lose one match, then online you'll see that, like, oh, it's their style is terrible or it never was great or my style is better and all that. So we actually see that a lot because with regards to catch wrestling, since it is like a grappling style with submissions and stuff. So we quite often see people who do jujitsu. They try to troll us or troll catch wrestling just in general. And so, like, if someone has a match that claims to do catch wrestling or whatever, then and if they happen to lose a match, then we hear about it. Even if it's someone who's not associated with us, then people will comment, "What about such and such a person who lost jiu-jitsu match or whatever?" And most of the time, it's someone who's not associated with us or hasn't trained with us. Um, but so we still hear about it, right? And but again, there is one point to be made where quite often a little bit more level-headed people will talk about where it's not so much the art, right, but it is the practitioner, right? So throughout history we have all these styles that have their stories where they talk about like one individual practitioner being able to beat all kinds of other martial arts in matches, like in real public matches and stuff like that. There's actually a lot of those stories throughout time, right? Especially in a lot of these Chinese styles. There's even what movies made about it. I think Jet Li was in one. I think it called Fearless, where he plays like an actual, like a real martial arts instructor who had all these like real like public matches and all that. And um, but then not even just that, we also have, say, like in kickboxing, we have these a lot where like a Korean taekwondo like athlete can beat like a Muay Thai athlete in a professional match, right? So we have these things happening all the time. So there is a lot of validity to the whole thing where it's like the practitioner and not so much the style. But with that being said, right? So like I'll give someone that kind of argument, right? But with that being said, I think there are some styles that would give you an advantage outside of their rule set, right? But let's go ahead and talk about one thing first. And I think if you saw the thumbnail on our YouTube channel for this thing, for this this live stream today, uh, you'll see that there's like a image, right? And so what it is like a recent match. It was actually just like a week ago, like last week, I believe. It was a 13-time jiu-jitsu world champion. So it was an IBJJF. So it's like a very well respected by the jiu-jitsu community. 13-time world champion. It's a women's MMA match. So the woman, her name is Nicolini from Brazil, and it was against a Chinese woman boxer, right? So her name is Xiong Jingnan, right? So she actually doesn't really do the sanda stuff. So even though she's from China, while she was in China, she did like bodybuilding and boxing, right? So not even so much kickboxing. There's all like she's really good at her hands, right? That's that is kind of like you would say that that is her base style. So now she's trying to incorporate more things like kicks, and um, she trains at Evolve MMA, that gym in Singapore, that big gym where they bring in all the really famous pro athletes to train. So she has like for before this fight, they had her sparring a lot with jiu-jitsu black belts and stuff that they have there because they do have world class training there in Singapore at that gym at Evolve. There's other great gyms out there because where it's like Evolve is just kind of like one gym. They do have a few locations around Singapore, but uh, there are people who were instructors there who started their own gyms elsewhere. So I mean, there's a lot of great martial arts training in Singapore, right? But anyway, so Xiong, even though she's from China, she trains at Evolve now in Singapore. And let's go ahead and take a look at what happened when a boxer went up against a 13-time world jiu-jitsu champion.
She knows it. We know it. Woo! It's the ground. Oh, smack bang! The big right hand from Zhong Jinnan drops Nicolini. There's the power of the punching panda.
Right, that was pretty much the match. It did go the whole time, I believe, but it was a lot of that where the jiu-jitsu practitioner wasn't able to implement her game whatsoever. Um, Seong was always able to get out of any, and I think she jumped into guard, and yeah, like they're standing right, so that didn't work. Seong got out of everything and like knocked her down. It was a pretty quick clip, so let's go ahead and play it one more time. And I want to thank One Championship because they're really cool, right? So they allow us to use their footage. So this is actually from their social media and stuff. So this is stuff that actually all their matches, or at least the vast majority, are available for free on YouTube and stuff. But let's go ahead and watch that video again because it's so short. I think it's like what 10 seconds or something.
She knows it. We know it. Woo! It's the ground. Oh, smack bang! The big right hand from Zhong Jinnan drops Nicolini. There's the power of the punching panda.
So does that mean boxing is better than jiu-jitsu? Not necessarily, but I mean, I think when you use the logic of a lot of martial artists nowadays, and that's kind of what you'll hear, right? And that's the other thing too. It's like, even though amateur wrestling is been shown to be one of the most important and vital like aspects of MMA, you still get people, promoting jiu-jitsu over all that, right? So with that being said, right, so it doesn't so it doesn't necessarily prove that one style is more superior, but I think what I want to talk about is like there are styles that I believe can give you an edge, whether it be an MMA or like self-defense or just um like in like that. I think there's some styles that transcend their base, right? And of course I believe catch wrestling is one of them because the main thing is that you start standing up, and a lot of jiu-jitsu schools you will start kneeling down, right? And granted, sometimes there's like space limitations and whatnot, but catch wrestling has always been considered both kind of a sport and a self-defense style because it was also taught to the army and all that, but it was because it does have a lot of the like standing takedowns or standing, even some submissions like the double wrist lock and all that. It had all that always, and it never really faded away, right? But the thing is say like jujitsu, even though it's really good, and it started like as a self-defense style, right? So right now, because of a lot of the migration away from that original self-defense stuff to sport stuff. So like you even have like I talked about earlier, the IBJJF and their rule set, and like because they're so respected that a lot of schools, they base their entire curriculum off of winning at IBJJF events, right? So you get this evolution over time that, changes the sport. So the same thing happened with catch wrestling. So when catch wrestling was pro wrestling, uh, it also we also had to have an amateur version, right? So we had folk style, freestyle, but they already start changing it, right? So they add rules. They like eliminate like the submission holds and stuff like that. So because of that, you see what's become a freestyle and folk style now, where it just continues to evolve away from the original version, right? The original catch wrestling. All right. Um, so there is that. So I think I often talk about how like there's this distortion in the understanding of wrestling, right? So a lot of people just think of they think of wrestling as the modern freestyle folk style, and you get a lot of people who are like really well known in amateur wrestling talking about that, like, oh, our style, this is what the Greeks and the Romans did, this is the whatever. It's like, well, that's actually not what the Greeks and Romans did. It's actually modernized version, and it's actually, came from catch wrestling, and a much more neutered version of catch wrestling. So a lot of times it's like, you don't want to you just got to put the information out there. Hopefully they get it. It's like the whole thing where it's like you can lead a horse to water kind of thing, and you don't expect them to drink it, right? So that's what I'm saying. It's like people have this kind of, they can have this distorted version of what they believe real wrestling is. So these are all grappling styles. So it would be a real grappling style, but we're talking about catch wrestling and the original root. So the original root version can be used more as self-defense and sport, right? Not to say that, a folk style background can't be used for self-defense, but there would automatically be a disadvantage because there's no submission holds. So it would be useful to a certain extent, right? So another style, of course, that I would say kind of gives you an advantage, right? As a base style would be the Chinese kickboxing. That's the one that I always talk about, or I often talk about, the Sanda, because it's a striking style, but it has a lot of takedowns, a lot more than Muay Thai. It's kind of funny because like sometimes. There's one time in particular where this Muay Thai practitioner is like, "Well, we have takedowns too," and it's not the same. It's not as sophisticated, and it's actually Sanda has actually been influencing Muay Thai in that way, where they are trying to use a wider variety of kicks. They are trying to catch some kicks, or trying to use a wider variety, and it's usually because of they've had a lot of matches, a lot of nights where they have matches against each other, right? And so when Thai practitioner goes up against a very skilled Chinese practitioner, then a lot of times they'll just get taken down over and over, and they really can't implement their striking strategy, right? So that's why I believe that um, like Sanda would be somewhat more advantageous, right? So like we've had Sanda practitioners who've gone into like pure kickboxing and whatnot, so and they did well and stuff like that. So that's why I believe that a Sanda base and a catch wrestling base can give you an advantage, even though overall, like I'll agree that we're like a lot of times it's the practitioner himself or herself that kind of makes the style, or makes for a winner, right, in competition, right? Because sometimes there's so many things that go into like winning in competition, and it could be like a lot of it's like they always talk about like a lot of it's mental. So we could have uh a great catch wrestler that's just not in it mentally, and then they can't perform well in a match or in a tournament. So there's so many things that go into winning, but if you have like this base of or the base style of Sanda or catch wrestling, I do believe that if you could have an advantage overall, like once you get the mental aspect in there, once you get the strength and conditioning aspect in there, then you could be at an advantage. And actually, these styles, I believe, because we have in catch wrestling, we have the stand up aspect that you have to learn about, the ground aspect you have to learn about. It might take you longer to get better at that style than like just another type of grappling style. But if you put that time in, that extra time in to learn, then you can, like at the end of 5 years or whatever, potentially be better than like someone who does like a more limited grappling style. Right. Like I think we always talk about like you can probably submit an amateur wrestler or something like that because their wrestling might be great, but if they're not training submissions, then they won't expect it, and then they'll actually be put in. And this is what you see a lot in jujitsu, and I think this kind of has. I think we talked about it in the last time where Flow Grappling put out that documentary about jujitsu being better than amateur wrestling. They call it wrestling, but I really have to put that clarification in there about the amateur wrestling because um, like they that's really what they're talking about. They took a lot of these people who don't do like submission holds, and then they get submitted in jujitsu matches. I've seen a lot of people also, like even when I train with jujitsu practitioners, they talk about like, oh, I trained or I submitted some wrestling guy who comes in here all the time. I always submit him and whatever. Um, and that's probably could very well be true. And but when I find out who the person is, a lot of times, yeah, it's not like they're doing catch wrestling. They just maybe did folk style or freestyle, and they're good at getting the takedown, but they get submitted overall because um, they're not cognizant of the submissions and they don't realize how they put themselves at a disadvantage or in a position where they could potentially be submitted, right? Whether it be like triangle chokes or whatever. So that would be one of the differences. Also, say with regards to striking with the Sanda, it's like you can kick and punch a lot, but you might not be aware like how you set yourself up to get taken down or slammed or whatever. So um, that's one of the things that you like would be missing if you only did a pure striking style, right? But that's why I think like even though I think overall like people's logic is kind of flawed where they think like, oh, we have like a person who was like really good at or claiming to be like a catch wrestler, and then they lose one match against a jiu-jitsu practitioner, then that proves that jiu-jitsu is better. It's like, no, not exactly. Because like look at the example I just showed with the one championship. It's like we have a woman who is a 13-time world champion, IBJJF world jiu-jitsu champion, and just got dismantled, right, by a boxer, right? So not even so much a kickboxer, but just someone using her hands right, to like shut everything she had down, right? So um, it's like for every time they try to troll, it's like we got plenty of examples back, right? And probably even better examples, because like what better of an example can you get than a 13-time IBJJF World Jiu-Jitsu champion just getting dismantled, right? Um, so it's like just it's true. Like everyone should try to be respectful, but I think you know like I do believe that some styles do give you an edge. So like I said, catch wrestling and um, Chinese kickboxing, I do believe that you can get an edge overall because you would be exposed to a wider variety of skills and techniques. And like I said earlier, it's like you might not be. It might take you a little bit longer to get good at them because you're gonna have it's almost like you're gonna have a larger curriculum, so you have to take more classes to understand the one style or to learn the one topic. But once you do learn the one topic, then you should be at an advantage overall against people who only do one thing, who only do what punch, like what's it, jab, hook, uppercut, elbow, or something like that. Like if someone's only doing that, yeah, they're going to be great at it faster than you. But if you're doing that plus knee strikes and kicks and takedowns, learning how to catch all these strikes and stuff, then it's going to take you longer to get great. But if you stick with it, then yeah, you should be at an advantage. But then you also have to take into consideration the mental aspect and the strength and conditioning and stuff like that. So there's a lot that goes into winning, and I think we kind of talk about it often. But yeah, it's like it doesn't really prove too much when, especially in catch wrestling, if someone who claims to do catch wrestling, if they lose a match, it doesn't really prove much because there's so few catch wrestlers just overall. so there, right? So for those of you who missed our little video presentation, let's go and show it one more time here. So this is Xiong Jingnan just dismantling 13-time world champion Nicolini in Singapore. Just was it last Friday?
She knows it. We know it. Woo! It's the ground. Oh, smack bang! The big right hand from Zhong Jinnan drops Nicolini. There's the power of the punching panda.
Yeah, so hopefully you enjoyed that, right? Yeah, everyone's entitled to their opinion, but there's, because like jiu-jitsu has gone so far away from the self-defense aspect, then you'll see situations like that, right? Or you see, like, I think we talked about it a few months ago, where just like more of like the karate guy should have been able to beat Gary Tonnen, but he didn't. But the thing is like Gary didn't really dominate him. Like the guy was able to get out of all of Gary's submission attempts, and he's just like a karate guy, right? So he's kicking and punching, and that's the thing. It's like I think he really could have won, but maybe he was being a little too respectful. And I mean, he's a little too fearful of getting submitted. But I think once he got out of a few of the submission holds, he really should have unleashed or unloaded a lot of his strikes, because his strikes were landing, his knees were landing. But then I think that he kind of like, it could have been a strength and conditioning thing or a mental thing. But yeah, then the strikes came fewer and far between. And I think that's ultimately what lost him that match. It was, I can't remember the last name. It was like a longer Japanese name, but he was from Japan and a karate martial artist. Yeah, but all that stuff's here on YouTube. You can always check out the One Championships YouTube channel. You should be able to find that fight. We also talk about it a lot. I think we probably showed it also, or at least some clips of it or something on our live stream. We talked about it. So, I mean, does that mean karate is better or whatever? It's like, not necessarily, but it can, there's aspects of it that can help you get out of submission holds. And same thing with Xiong Jingnan. There's aspects of boxing that she was training with a lot of black belts at Evolve in Singapore. So she was used to a lot of these attacks. So she was able to get out. And in the case of Xiong, her match, she won her match, right? She's also the champion in that weight division in One Championship. So like she's going to be tough to beat anyway, because she's defended her title like a few times. She's also been able to beat like the One Championship's star fighter, Angela Lee, who's an American. I believe the dad is like of Singapore descent or something. Like I don't know, but like they live in Hawaii, and but One Championship like really took a liking to her because of that Singapore connection, because they're based in Singapore. But she's also really good. Like she's won all these fights, and she's done all these kind of really cool submissions and stuff like that. So for a while, I'm not sure now, but for a while she was like ranked as the most marketable like athlete in the world. So like this was the thing that went out to different companies where like if you wanted your products to be seen, then pay her to get your products seen, market with her. And so yeah, this was like, she was above like a lot of these big time athletes in other sports as well. So Xiong was able to beat her in their first meeting. I think what they did was they did it where it's like Angela went up to that weight division and then lost, but then they did a rematch at Angela's weight division, and so then Angela was able to get a decision or whatever. So they did something like that where it's like one got a win and the other one got a win, but the first one Xiong won in the first meeting. So they'll probably do a trilogy or something. But yeah, it's gonna be tough. All right. Any comments or questions? There's a few people watching, but no one's really, or at least I'm not seeing any comments. Usually you guys comment. But if not, I think I've kind of explained it where it's like, like we still have to build up more catch wrestlers, and then you can get a better sense of what it is. But with that being said, I'm starting a new class. I'll be teaching Sanda and catch wrestling at UCLA at their gym starting in October. That gym is open to the public, but you would have to get a membership. But what it is like it's a real gym. So you would have like weights and cardio machines and whatnot. Plus, you would have access to all the different types of classes that they offer. So they have like martial arts, dance, yoga, spinning, all that stuff, all at one place. So this is the gym that's on campus, on UCLA campus here in Los Angeles. And so UCLA is a public school, so that's why things are open to the public, but you would have to like get a membership to that gym, the John Wooden Center. Still teaching at Fight Science MMA as well. That is also open to the public. But it's a private gym, but at that school, their focus is MMA, and so they offer a wide variety of classes there as well. But I only teach catch wrestling there. All right, so feel free to inquire about that. We also have the online program, the CWA Academy, that's on our website, catchwrestlingalliance.com. You can click on that tab and join. It is actually a serious program, so it's not just like feeding you a bunch of videos and then you can learn everything and then just be certified. No, it actually does take some time. It's like we want to try to make real, like good catch wrestlers. So even though you're not nearby, you can at least we can at least try our hardest to make you as proficient as possible. That's one of the goals. And so we have students in different locations far away in different countries and stuff. So feel free to join that. And you can ask any questions at any time. If you're struggling with something, just let me know. We can help you out. So there is a chat room in there, but you can also message on our social media and stuff like that to get answers to your questions if you're struggling with anything. You can also join this YouTube channel. So on our YouTube channel, if you're listening to the podcast, on our Catch Wrestling Alliance YouTube channel, you can become a member. So you can just support us. It's like $2 a month, or we also have different tiers. So the other tier would be like where we give you access to even more kind of like behind the scenes videos. And you would be able to watch all of those extra ones. So sometimes we'll even do a different ending of some of our technique videos to give you something else to think about as a way to finish your submission or get a different type of submission, whether it be a leg lock or something else that's unique, right? So we try to make it worth your while to support like what we do, like our project here. So thank you very much for listening. Thank you for watching. And if you have any questions or comments or anything you would like me to talk about, just let us know. You can comment below or comment on our social media. Just let us know. We're on Twitter, Instagram, Facebook, TikTok as well. All right. So thank you very much. We'll hope to see you soon, and together we can keep real wrestling alive.